to those of you who have already joined us. Usually a couple more people kind of roll in. And this is a NOHBA presentation, and today Krissi Vandenberg, who is the Executive Director of Vegan Action Vegan Awareness Foundation, is going to explain how they do the certification that they offer, how they interact with the people who want to use their logo. She's going to show us their logo. And I think with that, Krissi, go ahead and take it away. So I'm going to let you go through your presentation, and then we can do Q&A.
Sounds great. Right.
Okay.
So Vegan Action was formed in 1995 by a few UC Berkeley students who were vegan and wanted to share the idea of veganism with a lot of people, and also wanted to work with the university in getting more vegan options in the dorm cafeteria. So that was the first campaign of Vegan Action. And so then the organization started to work with other universities and sort of expand the outreach. And eventually, in about 1998, we started, I joined the organization, and we started trying to brainstorm some other great ideas of how to not just share the idea of veganism, but how to make it easier for folks to choose vegan options when they're shopping. And so we thought, what a great idea to start having a logo or a label to put on packaging. So we did a lot of research. We interviewed a lot of vegans to try to get an idea of how to really define it. There isn't a legal or definitive definition of what vegan means. So we realized we obviously have to draw the line somewhere and come up with a really specific definition in order to have specific guidelines. So we worked on that for a while. We worked on a logo, and we started soliciting companies and launched the program in 2000. And so this is our trademark logo, which is on tens of thousands of products now. In the year 2000, I was faxing, which is funny to think of now, companies and begging them to please consider applying to use the certified vegan logo. And it was a lot of work because it was new. Vegan and vegan products were still a very new concept. And, 20 years ago, it was actually a bit challenging to find vegan products sometimes. And so the program has really grown tremendously over the years, and it is really, really appreciated by the consumers. We are now at the point where companies are reaching out to us. We have 6 full-time staff members that work on certification. It has become such a great demand. And we just hear from consumers all the time how much they appreciate it. So it's a really long-standing trusted logo. So essentially, we're just doing the work for the consumer in that we request all of the documentation on the individual ingredients. So we confirm that those ingredients have not been derived from animals. We confirm those individual ingredients have not been tested on animals. We confirm that they have not been processed with animal ingredients, and that the finished product hasn't been tested on animals. So we do all of that work so that the consumer doesn't have to, and that they can feel really good about the product that they're buying. What also has happened is that companies have realized it's an amazing marketing tool. So it's really helpful for them if there are 4 bottles of shampoo on the shelf and one of them is labeled with a certified vegan logo. There are definitely some consumers that are going to choose that one over the others because they don't have to read, they don't have to guess at the ingredients or contact the company with questions. So it's really been amazing how it's worked all of these different ways and all of these different angles. And We, as I said, we have a full-time staff that works on reviewing all of this documentation. Companies are constantly adding new products throughout the year for us to review and add. And then we, of course, do a review renewal process once a year for all of the companies that we're working with. But it has just been more successful than we could have ever imagined 20 years ago. It's really been remarkable. The other thing that has been really amazing is that we started out just certifying food products. And then slowly over time, we've had people reach out to us and ask if we would certify a lip balm, if we would certify soap. And now we have certified avocado green mattresses. We've certified flip-flops and bamboo toothbrushes and all of these things that we normally don't think about as far as being not vegan or vegan necessarily, but the consumer is more educated than ever before about ingredients, processes, and animal testing. And animal testing has decreased tremendously in the last 20 years, but it does still exist, and there are still some FDA requirements for some ingredients. So it is still just as relevant and important as it was even just 20 years ago. And, you know, we always are surprised when we find out new ingredients that may be tested on animals that we just never would have thought of. And so that's why we're so particular in requiring documentation on everything. We've received documentation of raisins being tested on animals for different toxicity and nutrition studies, and sunflower oil, and just about anything you can imagine. And we do recognize that everything at some point has been tested on animals. So we have decided on the year 2000 as the mark for last date of testing. So that's part of our criteria for vegan certification. And so far, for the most part, that has not been a challenge for companies when they're applying. There have been cases where companies have applied and their documentation hasn't been able to meet the no animal testing criteria. So we actually work with the company and help them find an alternative ingredient that hasn't been tested. So we've been able to, after 20 years of doing this, have a really wonderful database available to provide to companies for alternatives of ingredients that meet our criteria of being both not animal derived and not tested on animals. So it's just been remarkable that we are working with really large multinational companies that are seeing the demand for vegan products, and that have an incredible amount of distribution. So there are products now in CVS and Kroger and Walgreens and Target and Costco and Walmart and 7-Eleven. There's Ben & Jerry's non-dairy ice cream in 7-Elevens. So it's just really remarkable that vegan products have become much more accessible and much more affordable, which is, of course, how supply and demand works. So the demand for vegan products has increased tremendously. More and more companies are making these products. And so they've become a lot more affordable, which has always been one of the challenges of encouraging folks to choose a better option that is better for the environment, better for animals, and better for their health. When it's 2 to 3 times more expensive, sometimes that's not a reasonable option for some folks. But more recently, the options are becoming much, much more affordable and more accessible. Which again is part of our greater mission. Is we want people to be able to make these choices just as easily as they would be able to otherwise. So it's just been really, really wonderful. And we've also been able to get great feedback from, there's companies that we started working with in the year 2000 that we still work with. One of them that's coming to mind is Dr. Prager's. They were one of the first companies we certified, and we just are able to get that really great feedback of how much consumers really appreciate that logo for them. It's been incredibly successful. And yeah, so I would love to know if anyone has any questions about the program or anything else specific about it.
I'm going to jump in, Krissi, because
Yeah.
I've been helping one of my customers go through your process, and I also sign your documents frequently because I sell ingredients, and so
Right.
I get the documents. So first, an ingredient question. You mentioned the thing about the year 2000.
Mm-hmm.
I signed a document for a customer that for one of the companies I represent, and in 2004, when they changed the laws in Europe and they made it illegal to sell anything that was, tested on animals, they use that as their date, or 2000. I think they actually used 2013. I think that's when the EU made it. I used 2004 on my letterhead because that's the year I incorporated.
Okay.
I mean, I sell food that's used in cosmetics. So for me, I probably could say 2000 without a problem,
Right.
but because I know everybody who makes my stuff and I know how they make it, but I have to get documents from them. So this goes all the way down the trail, And so if I go to somebody like this one vendor who says, well, we adopted the EU law in 2013, does that mean you can't work with them? Or how do you guys deal with that?
Right. So a lot of those documents do make that claim, but when pressed just a little bit further, they are able to confirm that they haven't done any of that testing. That's just the claim that is often asked for. So most of the time when we ask the applicant to go back to that company and say, would you be able to ask them, when was the last time you requested testing? Then they usually are able to sign off that they have not requested that ingredient was tested for them after the year 2000.
So the one thing that, that made me think about was there's just that company, but then if you like, I'm very responsible. So I want to go back to everybody I work with. And then
Right.
they have to go back to everybody they work with, especially if you have a multi-ingredient product.
Mm-hmm.
And like this one that I'm talking about that does 2013, they use multiple ingredients. So they would have to go, and they make custom products. So if somebody wants a certain kind of fragrance or a certain kind of extract, that's what they make for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have to go back to all these people who may or may not. They're at a certain point. We are sort of on regulatory overload. When I get a list now of documents that somebody wants for an ingredient, it's usually 15 to 25 items long. And so certain companies are saying, that's it. I'm not going to go any further. I'll give you what I got, and that's all I'm going to do. And
Right.
so are you seeing anything like that?
We have received some feedback from some of the companies that have applied that that some of the manufacturers are having a hard time getting back to them, that they have just one claim already on their letterhead, and that's all that they are willing to provide. And so so we used to say, let us reach out on your behalf, but 9 times out of 10, the manufacturers aren't responding to us because we're not their client.
Right. They're not going to.
Right. And they usually don't, or it's proprietary or confidential information. So what I try to tell everyone is that it's a lot of work on the front end, but it is just one time. So there have been instances where companies really see the value of the certified vegan logo and will actually find an ingredient distributor replacement. We try our best to work with what they have. And so we do go to the ingredient level. If let's say, for instance, and I think this might be kind of your question, if there is an ingredient blend, then we do accept a document from the manufacturer saying this blend has not been sourced from animals. This blend has not been tested on animals, and we will accept that claim. But it is a lot of documentation to collect on the front end, and we recognize that. And especially this year during a pandemic, it's been even more challenging for companies to be able to get the documentation that they need. And so we just try to be as supportive and patient as we can.
Okay. And then can you kind of give people an overview of cost?
Yes. So we are a nonprofit organization, and we wanted to make sure the fee to get certified, which is actually a licensing fee to use our trademark logo, was not cost prohibitive. So we do have a sliding scale based on the company's revenue, and that varies from $150 a year to a maximum of $3,000 a year. And that's based on the company's previous year's revenue. So we have a scale. I'm sorry, what was that?
That's on your website?
It is, yes. Yes.
Show the logo, hold up your logo. You just had it in your hand. Okay, so it's just vegan.org.
Vegan.org is our website. We have all of the information on there, the application. And we've also been working with companies a lot this year. We've waived a lot of their annual fees this year because of the pandemic. And so, a lot of the companies we work with are really small companies, and we want to be as supportive as we can. So we've actually waived a lot of licensing fees this year, and are also willing to continue to do that. So for any new applicants that are really interested, we definitely don't want that licensing fee to be a deterrent in any way. We would want to work with a company no matter what. Since we do this for the consumer, we do this for the greater good, and we love supporting companies that make vegan products. So we want to be a really helpful resource in that way.
Okay, does anybody else have questions?
I do. This is Mark from Elevation Labs.
Hi.
Hi, Mark.
Yes, I had a question. A lot of times for gathering non-animal testing documents, we see a statement that says may not have been tested for cosmetic purposes, but something like worker safety. How does that fall into your jurisdiction?
Yes, that's an excellent question. That claim is not specific enough for our guidelines, especially because it doesn't include food or nutrition trials, which goes back to the example I gave earlier about raisins and sunflower oil. So part of our no animal testing requirement is no animal testing of any kind.
Okay.
Some companies that do sign off on that document have requested to have a clause in there, with the exception of any future testing that may be required by law. And we will actually accept that. And we just ask that the company require that update from the manufacturer if that is the clause that they add to the agreement, to the document that they sign. Great. Because they do often want to have that clause in there about human safety if it's ever required by law.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
I have a question. This is Joan Moraes.
Hi, Joan.
Hi, and is certification just only product-based? I mean, I've been teaching for 7.5 years,
Mhm.
for formulation courses for vegan skincare and hair care. But, we've searched many, many, many times and cannot find any certifying agencies for, unless it's product based. So I'm just wondering, do you have any program or know of anybody that could certify?
Right. That's such a good question. And we do receive that. Um, we do only certify finished products. And that was just something that was decided by our attorney because of specific to using a trademark and trademark guidelines. But we do often get asked about certifying an ingredient because we understand that makes it easier for the company that's developing a product to have that information ahead of time. So I actually find that it's unfortunate that we're unable to do that. And I don't know of any certifying body that does certify individual ingredients. What we do, however, is have a database of ingredients that we have approved. So I would be interested in working with you if you're interested as well on reviewing some of your documentation and getting that added into our database if you're interested in doing that, so that we can add that to the documents that we have as resources for companies.
Okay, yes, absolutely. And then for the students that do want to pursue the certification, is the database public, or they start the process with you? So, I'm just trying to figure out, as far as guiding them, it's like, I say for them to first have the, before jumping in and if they're going to get certification, go to somebody to see if those ingredients are, before putting their formulations together and doing all the pre-market testing.
Right.
And so they would come to you, and then like, how long of a process is it for them?
So once we've received all of the documentation with the application, it's a several week process for us to go through everything and confirm that it does meet our requirements, and to send over the agreement to be signed and returned. So it can be fairly quick, and we sometimes do get rush requests to help meet print deadlines, and we always do our best to meet those as well. But another thing that we do offer is to review documents via email from companies before they even apply. And so we welcome them to send over, is this a good example of what you're looking for as a source document? Would this document prove properly for a no animal testing document? So that's something we're always willing to do, just to provide that guidance ahead of time before submission.
Okay, very helpful. Thank you very much.
Of course. Yeah, and like I said, I always try to provide that information ahead of time as much as I can to applicants, especially when I have the opportunity to talk to them on the phone, that it is a lot of work reaching out to all of those manufacturers and getting those documents, but at least it is just one time. So that's one reassurance there, at least.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? I do have to note that there's this cool new little raise hand button on the Zoom thing, which I think that's new.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's only been a few weeks.
I know, because I had never seen it before, and then I saw it when Hunter asked a question. So, or Mark, I guess, I'm sorry. So then I think we can wrap it up, and I so appreciate you coming and taking the time to talk to us and explain more about how your process works. And hopefully we will have a real NOHBA conference again, and you guys can be represented there in some way.
I would love that.